The crystal chamber hummed with alien energy as Commander Zethka adjusted the broadcast controls. Millions of beings across 17 star systems would witness this moment. The human knelt in the center of the execution platform, hands bound behind his back with quantum restraints that could hold a charging Vrex beast. Marcus Chen had been a maintenance worker on mining station Kepler 442b when the hegemony forces arrived. Nothing special about him, really. Average height, brown hair going gray at the temples, calloused hands that spoke of honest work. The kind of human the galaxy had learned to overlook. That was their first mistake. The second mistake was thinking this execution would send the right message. Zethka's four eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he checked the viewer count. 67 million and climbing. Perfect. The galactic hegemony needed to show these upstart humans what happened when they refused to surrender their mining rights, when they dared to think their little species could stand against a civilization that spanned half the galaxy. Citizens of the hegemony, Zethka's voice boomed through the translation matrix. Today we demonstrate the fate of those who defy our righteous expansion. This human terrorist destroyed hegemony property and killed 12 of our soldiers. Marcus raised his head slowly. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. But something burned in his remaining good eye. Not fear, not desperation. Something else entirely. I fixed their broken equipment, Marcus said quietly, his voice somehow carrying despite the vast chamber. I welded their hull breaches. I kept their life support running when they first arrived. His voice grew stronger. And when they decided our children were in the way of their mining operation, I stopped them. Zethka's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The human wasn't supposed to speak. The execution protocol was clear. But let him talk. Let the galaxy hear the pathetic whimpering of a defeated species. You killed hegemony citizens, Zethka declared. I killed murderers, Marcus replied. There's a difference. In the viewing stations across 17 worlds, beings leaned forward. This wasn't going according to script. Humans were supposed to beg. They were supposed to break under pressure. Every other species did eventually. Zethka raised his plasma rifle, the weapon's energy cell glowing angry red. Any last words, terrorist? Marcus struggled to his feet, quantum restraints sparking as they fought his movements. He looked directly into the main broadcast camera, and for just a moment every being watching felt something primal stir in the back of their minds, something that whispered of ancient predators and prey. My name is Marcus Chen, he said, voice steady as bedrock. I was born on Earth in a place called Oregon. I have a wife named Sarah and 2 kids, Tommy and Lisa. I coached Tommy's baseball team. I taught Lisa how to fix engines. His voice never wavered, never broke. I am a human being. We don't kneel. We don't break. And we never ever forget. Zethka pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt struck Marcus' center mass, the energy weapon designed to cause maximum pain before death. The human's body convulsed, smoke rising from the impact site. He fell to his knees, then forward onto the crystal platform. But something was wrong. Marcus Chen was smiling. 3 minutes, he whispered, blood foaming at his lips. That's all you had. Zethka's 4 eyes narrowed in confusion. 3 minutes? What was the human talking about? The broadcast had been going for nearly an hour. Security was absolute. The hegemony controlled this entire system. Then the lights went out. Emergency illumination bathed the chamber in crimson light, and alarms began screaming throughout the station. Zethka's communication implant crackled to life with panicked reports from across the hegemony fleet. Commander, ships are dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple contacts. Unknown vessel signatures. They're not responding to hails. Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's the same message over and over. Zethka's blood went cold as ice. What message? Remember Marcus Chen, remember Marcus Chen, remember Marcus Chen. Through the chamber's viewing ports, stars began to move. No, not stars. Ship drives. Hundreds of them. Thousands. More ships than Zethka had ever seen in one place, and they all bore the same simple marking. A blue and green world circled by a single moon. Earth. The humans had come. But how? Human space was 12 parsecs away. Their technology was primitive. Their ships were barely faster than light. Intelligence reports said they had maybe 50 combat vessels in their entire fleet. The reports were wrong. As Zethka watched in growing horror, the human fleet spread across space like a swarm of angry insects. Their ships were strange, angular things that didn't match any known design principles. They moved with purpose, with coordination that spoke of a single unified will. Marcus Chen's body lay still on the platform, but his words echoed in the chamber. We never forget. The first human ship opened fire, and Zethka realized with crystalline clarity that the hegemony had made a terrible, terrible mistake. They had poked something that should have been left alone, something that had been quietly building, quietly preparing, quietly waiting for exactly this moment. The execution of Marcus Chen wasn't the end of human resistance. It was the beginning of human vengeance. The hegemony battlecruiser Eternal Glory shuddered under the first wave of human weapons fire. Admiral Corvin II had commanded fleets for over 200 cycles, had conquered 12 species, but nothing in his experience prepared him for this. Human weapons were wrong. They didn't follow the established rules of galactic warfare. Energy shields that should have deflected their attacks simply failed. Armor plating that could withstand plasma cannons crumpled like paper under kinetic. Projectiles that moved faster than anything had a right to move. Damage report. Corvin II's voice cracked despite his efforts to remain calm. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Shields are fluctuating. Sir, their weapons are somehow bypassing our defensive matrices. On the tactical display, human. Ships swarmed around hegemony vessels like predators around wounded prey. They moved in patterns that defied military doctrine, each ship supporting others in ways that seemed impossible without instantaneous communication across the entire fleet. But it was more than tactics, more than technology. It was rage made manifest. The lead human vessel, a massive angular fortress of metal and fury, broadcast on all frequencies. The voice that emerged was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You executed my husband 3 minutes ago. Your species has 30 seconds to surrender unconditionally, or we demonstrate why evolution made humans the apex predator of Earth. Corvin II's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Sarah Chen. The human had said his wife's name was Sarah. This wasn't just a rescue mission or even a retaliatory strike. This was personal. Admiral, his tactical officer whispered, they have over 4,000 vessels. Our entire fleet numbers 800. How is that possible? Human space has barely 50 worlds. Sir, I'm reading ship configurations from across known human space. These aren't just military vessels. I'm detecting modified cargo haulers, mining ships, even what appears to be converted passenger liners. Every human ship in their territory is here. Every ship. Corvin II felt his blood chill. When humans went to war, they didn't just send their military, they sent everyone. The tactical display showed human vessels breaking into attack formations with mechanical precision. But there was something else. Something that made Corvin II's combat instincts scream warnings. The humans weren't just coordinated. They were synchronized in a way that suggested a shared consciousness, a collective will focused on a single purpose. 30 seconds passed. The human admiral's voice returned, colder than deep space. Time's up. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Human weapons opened fire with coordinated fury that defied comprehension. Kinetic rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed punched through hegemony shields like they weren't there. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves weaved through defensive fire to strike with surgical precision. Energy weapons that operated on principles the hegemony didn't recognize, carved through armor like a hot blade through ice. But the most terrifying thing wasn't the weapons. It was the way the humans fought. Every other species in the galaxy fought to achieve objectives. They captured strategic points, eliminated threats, secured resources. They fought like civilized beings with civilized goals. Humans fought like they wanted to hurt people. The Eternal Glory bucked and twisted as human fire concentrated on her engines. Not to destroy her quickly, Corvin II realized with growing horror. To cripple her, to make her helpless, to make her crew watch what happened next. Sir, they're not targeting our command centers or weapon systems first, his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. They're systematically destroying our escape pods and life support systems. They wanted the hegemony crews to know they were going to die. Slowly. On the communication channels, Corvin 2 could hear the panicked voices of other hegemony commanders. Ships crying for reinforcements that would never come. Captains begging for mercy from an enemy that had none to give. The sound of beings who had finally met something more ruthless than themselves. "Admiral," came a weak transmission from the cruiser Righteous Purpose. "They're boarding us. The humans are coming aboard." Corvin 2 felt his heart stop. "Boarding? Why aren't they just destroying you?" "I don't know, sir. They've breached our hull in 17 places, but they're not using weapons. They're using tools, mining equipment, construction gear, things that cut and tear instead of just killing." The voice dissolved into static for a moment. "Oh, blessed ancestors, they're taking the ship apart around us, taking it apart with us still inside." The transmission cut to screams. Human tactics, Corvin 2 realized, weren't designed for quick victory. They were designed for maximum psychological impact. Every hegemony ship they disabled, every crew they trapped in crippled vessels, sent a message to the rest of the fleet. This is what happens when you hurt one of ours. A proximity alarm jolted Corvin 2 back to his own situation. Human ships surrounded the Eternal Glory, their angular hulls bristling with weapons. But they weren't firing. They were waiting. The communication board lit up with an incoming transmission. Corvin 2 accepted it, knowing he had no choice. The face that appeared on his screen was human, female, with graying brown hair and eyes that held the accumulated fury of an entire species. Admiral Sarah Chen looked exactly like someone who had just watched her husband murdered on live broadcast. "Admiral Corvin 2, she said, her voice conversational despite the carnage surrounding them. "I've reviewed your service record. 200 cycles of faithful service to the hegemony. 47 successful campaigns. 12 species brought under hegemony control." Corvin 2 said nothing. What was there to say? "You have children," Sarah continued. 3 offspring on the hegemony homeworld. They're proud of their father's service. She leaned forward slightly. "I want you to understand something, Admiral. My husband fixed things. That's what he did. When something was broken, Marcus made it work again. He spent his whole life building, creating, helping." The human woman's eyes never blinked. "I break things," she said. "And right now, Admiral, I'm going to break your entire civilization, ship by ship, world by world, until there's nothing left but debris and the memory of what happens when you touch my family." The transmission ended, and Corvin 2 stared at a blank screen while around him, the sound of rending metal announced that the humans had begun taking his ship apart. The Hegemony High Council chamber had never hosted an emergency session at this hour. 7 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around a crystalline table that had witnessed the conquest of countless worlds. But none of them had ever felt fear like this. High Chancellor Vex Prime's 6 arms trembled as he reviewed the tactical reports streaming in from the human offensive. In the past 6 hours, humanity had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had made the hegemony afraid. "Status report." Vex Prime's voice carried none of its usual authority. Defense Minister Clath 7 cleared his throat, a wet, uncomfortable sound. "The human fleet has systematically destroyed or captured every hegemony vessel in the Kepler 442 system. Total casualties are estimated at 47,000 personnel." "Captured?" Council member Rintao leaned forward, her scaled face showing confusion. "Why would they take prisoners?" Clath 7's expression darkened. "They're not taking prisoners, Counselor. They're taking witnesses." The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of environmental systems. "Explain," Vex Prime demanded. "The humans are releasing our captured personnel after conditioning them. Each survivor returns with the same message burned into their minds. Remember Marcus Chen. They're using our own people as psychological weapons against us." Counselor Zethos Ka, eldest of the assembly, spoke for the first time. His voice carried the weight of 3 centuries. "I have seen many species fall before the hegemony. Some fight with honor, some surrender with dignity, some rage uselessly against the inevitable. his ancient eyes fixed on each council member in turn. But never have I seen a species weaponize grief. On the central display, tactical readouts showed human forces spreading like infection through hegemony space. Their movement patterns defied every strategic doctrine in the galactic military database. Instead of securing conquered territory or establishing supply lines, they simply moved from system to system, leaving destruction in their wake. They're not trying to conquer anything, Defense Minister Clath 7 realized aloud. They're just destroying everything they can reach. Intelligence Director Morketh activated a holographic display showing intercepted human communications. Our analysts have been monitoring their broadcasts. The humans aren't operating under traditional military command structures. Every ship, every crew appears to be acting independently with a single shared objective, which is to make us hurt the way they hurt. The simplicity of it was terrifying. No complex political objectives, no territorial ambitions, no negotiable demands, just pure focused vengeance. What of our allies? Vex Prime asked. The Vrathan Empire, the Celestial Confederacy, both have recalled their fleets to defensive positions around their homeworld, Clath 7 admitted. The Vrathan ambassador stated that they refuse to provoke the human madness. The Confederacy has gone completely silent. Counselor Rin Tao stood abruptly. This is impossible. One minor species cannot threaten an empire that spans half the galaxy. How many ships can they possibly have? Intelligence Director Morketh manipulated the holographic display, showing ship configuration analyses. That's what makes this so dangerous, Counselor. These aren't all military vessels. Our computers are identifying converted civilian ships, modified industrial platforms, even what appear to be hastily armed passenger liners. The humans have militarized their entire spacefaring civilization. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. When humans went to war, they didn't just send their armies. They sent everyone. Estimated human fleet strength? Vex Prime asked quietly. 12,000 vessels and climbing. More ships are joining the offensive every hour as they arrive from across human space. 12,000. The hegemony's core battle fleet numbered 3,000 ships scattered across 17 sectors. In a conventional war, numbers alone wouldn't guarantee victory, but this wasn't conventional warfare. Show them the Arcturus incident, Zethoska said grimly. Morketh activated a new display showing footage from the Arcturus mining colony. The images were grainy, transmitted by automated surveillance systems before communications were cut. Human ships had arrived at the mining station in force, but instead of destroying it outright, they had done something far more disturbing. They had methodically dismantled it piece by piece while the hegemony workers inside were forced to watch. Every support beam, every power coupling, every life support system was carefully removed, turned into floating debris. But they had left the workers alive in emergency shelters, with just enough life support to survive until rescue arrived, forced to drift in space for 3 days, watching their workplace become a graveyard of twisted metal. Every survivor returned with the same psychological conditioning. They were afraid of humans in a way that defied rational explanation. They're not just waging war, Zethoska observed. They're conducting psychological terrorism on a galactic scale. A new alarm sounded and the chamber's main display activated to show an incoming priority transmission. The source identifier showed it was coming from the human fleet. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on the screen, her expression calm and controlled. Behind her, the bridge of her ship buzzed with activity as human crews coordinated their continuing offensive. High Chancellor Vex Prime, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding officer of the Terran Defense Force expedition. 3 hours ago, you murdered my husband on live broadcast to demonstrate hegemony power. Vex Prime found his voice. Admiral Chen, we can negotiate terms of surrender. You misunderstand, Sarah interrupted. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to deliver a message. The human woman leaned forward slightly, and every being in the council chamber felt a primitive chill run down their spines. My husband was a good man. He fixed things that were broken. He helped people. He never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. Her voice remained perfectly level. You killed him to make a point about power. Now I'm going to make a point about consequences. What do you want? Vex Prime asked desperately. I want you to understand that humans don't forgive, Sarah Chen replied. We don't forget, and we never ever let anyone hurt our family without paying a price. The transmission ended, leaving the High Council staring at a blank screen. Outside the chamber's viewing ports, the first human ships appeared in the hegemony capital system, their angular hulls reflecting the light of twin suns. They moved with the patient certainty of predators who knew their prey had nowhere left to run. Sub-Commander Kethvar pressed himself against the debris field that had once been the cruiser Sovereign Dawn, watching human salvage teams work with methodical precision. For 18 hours he had hidden among the wreckage, surviving on emergency rations and recycled air, watching the humans conduct the most terrifying operation he had ever witnessed. They weren't looting. They weren't destroying. They were studying. Human technicians in environmental suits moved through the wreckage like archaeologists, carefully cataloging every piece of hegemony technology. Their movements were patient, thorough, and absolutely relentless. They dismantled weapon systems to understand their principles. They analyzed armor plating to discover its weaknesses. They downloaded data cores to learn hegemony tactics and strategies. The humans were learning how to kill them more efficiently. Kethvar activated his emergency transmitter, knowing it would likely be his last act. Emergency transmission to Hegemony High Command. This is Sub-Commander Kethvar, reporting from the Kepler 442 debris field. Static filled his helmet for a moment before a familiar voice responded. Kethvar? Thank the ancestors, we thought you were dead. Report. High Command, the humans are not behaving like any military force we've encountered. They're not seeking territory or resources. They're conducting systematic intelligence gathering operations. Explain. Kethvar watched a human team carefully extract an intact gravity generator from the wreckage. They're reverse engineering our technology in real time. Every ship they disable, every system they capture, they study it completely before moving on. Sir, they're not just fighting us, they're learning us. The voice from High Command carried new tension. How long have they been at this? Since the battle ended, sir. 18 hours of continuous analysis. They work in shifts, but the work never stops. Kethvar paused as he watched human engineers successfully activate a captured hegemony shield generator. Sir, they just figured out how our defensive shields work. It took them 6 hours. 6 hours to understand technology that had taken the hegemony 50 years to develop. Kethvar, you need to... The transmission cut to static as a human salvage ship's scanner beam swept over his position. Through the wreckage, Kethvar saw several human figures turning in his direction, their movement suddenly focused and purposeful. He had been found, but instead of weapons fire or capture teams, a single human approached his hiding place. The figure moved slowly, hands visible and empty, the universal gesture of peaceful intent. Sub-Commander Kethvar, the human said, its voice transmitted through suit communications. I'm Lieutenant Commander Jackson. Please don't run. We need to talk. Kethvar hesitated. Every instinct told him to flee, but curiosity won out. What do you want, human? The human removed its helmet, revealing a surprisingly young face with kind eyes. Nothing like the monster's hegemony propaganda had described. We want you to go home. What? We want you to return to your people and tell them what you've seen here. Jackson gestured to the salvage operation around them. Tell them we've learned how your weapons work. Tell them we understand your defensive systems. Tell them we know how you think. Kethvar felt confusion replace fear. Why would you want me to report your capabilities? Jackson's expression grew serious. Because we want your leaders to understand exactly how hopeless their situation has become. The human pulled up a holographic display showing tactical analyses of hegemony ships and weapons. Every system had been categorized, every weakness identified, every countermeasure developed. Your plasma rifles operate on a coherent energy matrix that creates a specific electromagnetic signature, Jackson explained with academic precision. We can now build personal shields that deflect them completely. Your ship armor uses crystalline reinforcement structures that become brittle when exposed to specific resonance frequencies. We know those frequencies. Kethvar stared at the display in growing horror. Everything the hegemony relied on for military superiority had been analyzed, understood, and countered. Your gravity weapons create localized space-time distortions, Jackson continued. We figured out how to detect them 3 seconds before they fire, giving our ships time to evade. Your quantum torpedoes have a flaw in their targeting systems that we can exploit to turn them against your own ships. How? Kethvar whispered. How is this possible? Jackson's expression softened slightly. Because we're really good at breaking things, Sub-Commander. And once we break something enough times, we learn how it works. The human gestured to the salvage team still working throughout the debris field. Every battle teaches us more. Every ship you send against us becomes a textbook for studying your capabilities. Every engagement makes us better at killing you. Kethvar felt his worldview crumbling. The hegemony had conquered 12 species using technological superiority and overwhelming force. But humans approached warfare like a learning exercise, systematically dismantling their enemies' advantages until nothing remained. There's something else you need to understand, Jackson continued. This isn't our full capability. What you've seen here, this fleet, this operation, this is just the beginning. What do you mean? Right now, every human world is building ships. Every human factory is producing weapons. Every human mind is focused on one objective, making your species pay for killing Marcus Chen. Jackson's voice remained calm, but something cold flickered in his eyes. We've been in space for barely 2 centuries, Sub-Commander. We're still learning what we're capable of. The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Humanity was essentially an infant species by galactic standards, and they had already proven capable of challenging the hegemony.
What would they become with time and experience?
Why are you telling me this? Kethvar asked. Because someone needs to convince your leaders to surrender before we finish learning how to fight you, Jackson replied. Because once we master galactic warfare completely, there won't be enough of your civilization left to surrender. A human transport ship approached their position, its cargo bay doors opening. That's your ride home, Jackson said, replacing his helmet. Tell your high command what you've seen. Tell them we've cracked their technology. Tell them we're just getting started. As Kethvar was escorted to the transport, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was carrying a death sentence back to his people. The humans hadn't just declared war on the hegemony. They had declared war on the very concept of galactic military superiority. And they were winning. The hegemony homeworld of Nexus Prime had stood unconquered for over 3,000 years. Its orbital defense platforms could shatter planets. Its fleet anchorages housed the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Its planetary shields had never been breached by any enemy force. Now, as Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Terran Vengeance, watching those defenses crumble under human weapons fire, she understood why her husband had always said that human engineering was different from everyone else's. Other species built things to last. Humans built things to work. Admiral, we've breached the outer defense perimeter, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station. Their orbital platforms are collapsing faster than projected. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. 3 weeks of systematic engagement had taught humanity everything about hegemony defensive systems. What had once seemed impregnable now looked like elaborate but ultimately flawed machinery. Status on the planetary evacuation? Approximately 60% of the civilian population has been evacuated to refugee ships. The hegemony government has relocated to deep bunkers. Sarah felt a moment of satisfaction. Unlike the hegemony, humans understood the difference between military targets and innocent civilians. The evacuation had been humanity's idea, transmitted as an ultimatum 3 days ago. Remove your people, or we'll remove them for you. The hegemony had actually complied, which told Sarah everything she needed to know about how thoroughly their confidence had been shattered. Incoming transmission from the planetary surface, Communications Officer Park announced. It's the High Chancellor. Put him through. High Chancellor Vex Prime's image appeared on the main screen, and Sarah was struck by how much the alien leader had aged in the past month. His 6 arms trembled slightly, and his once commanding presence had withered into something approaching desperation. Admiral Chen, Vex Prime began, his translator rendering his words in clipped, formal tones. I speak for the Hegemony High Council in offering our unconditional surrender. Sarah studied the alien's face for a long moment. Around her, the bridge had gone silent as every human officer waited for her response. High Chancellor, she said finally, do you know what my husband did for a living? Confusion flickered across Vex Prime's features. He was a maintenance worker, I believe. He fixed things, Sarah said. When something was broken, Marcus figured out how to make it work again. He spent his whole life building, repairing, helping. She leaned forward slightly. Do you know what I do for a living, Chancellor? You are a military officer. I'm a teacher, Sarah interrupted. Before this war, I taught military history at the Naval Academy. My specialty was studying how civilizations fall. The alien leader's face went pale, or what passed for pale among his species. You see, Chancellor, my husband built things. I study how they break. Sarah's voice remained conversational, almost academic. And right now I'm teaching your entire civilization a very important lesson about consequences. Please, Vex Prime said, all pretense of dignity abandoned. We surrender. We will pay reparations. We will accept any terms. You will accept the terms that Marcus would have accepted. Sarah cut him off. Complete demilitarization, dissolution of the hegemony government, individual trials for everyone involved in deciding to execute prisoners of war on live broadcast. Vex Prime's 6 arms gestured frantically. That would mean the end of our civilization as we know it. Yes, Sarah agreed calmly. It would. The transmission fell silent except for the sound of weapons fire as human ships systematically dismantled the last of the orbital defenses. There is something you need to understand, Chancellor, Sarah continued. When you killed my husband, you thought you were making a statement about power. You thought you were demonstrating hegemony superiority to the galaxy. She stood from her command chair, moving to stand directly in front of the main screen. Instead, you taught every species in the galaxy that humans will cross half the universe to make you pay for hurting one of our people. You demonstrated that our family bonds are stronger than your military might. You proved that human vengeance is more terrifying than hegemony conquest. On the tactical display, the last orbital platform exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Every species that was thinking about challenging us is now reconsidering, Sarah said. Every potential enemy is wondering if they want to face what you're facing. Every ally is grateful they chose correctly. Vex Prime seemed to collapse in on himself. What do you want from us? I want you to remember Marcus Chen, Sarah replied. I want your children's children to remember that a maintenance worker from Oregon brought down the greatest empire in the galaxy because you forgot that every human being matters to every other human being. She turned to address her bridge crew. Commander Torres, signal the fleet, begin the final phase. Admiral, what about the surrender? Vex Prime called desperately. Sarah looked back at the screen one last time. You can surrender to the War Crimes Tribunal, Chancellor. They'll be along shortly to collect you. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts as human ships moved into final positions around Nexus Prime. Through the bridge's main viewport, she could see the planet below, its cities, dark now that the power grid had been selectively disabled. No one would be hurt, but the message was clear. Human technology was now superior to anything the hegemony possessed. Admiral, Commander Torres said quietly, we're receiving surrender transmissions from hegemony forces across 17 sectors. It appears word of the homeworld's fall is spreading. Sarah nodded. The war was essentially over, though the trials and reconstruction would take years. But that was a problem for diplomats and judges. Her part was done. Signal the fleet to stand down from combat operations, she ordered. Begin preparation for occupation and peacekeeping duties. As human ships spread out to accept the surrender of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful empire, Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile. Marcus would have been proud. She had fixed something that was broken. She had fixed a galaxy that thought it was acceptable to murder innocent people on live broadcast for political gain. And in the process, she had taught every civilization in known space a lesson they would never forget. Humans protected their own. And the consequences for forgetting that lesson were absolute. 5 years after the fall of the hegemony, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been the High Council chamber of Nexus Prime, now converted into the Galactic Reconciliation Center. The crystalline table where alien overlords had once planned conquests now hosted peace negotiations between dozens of former client species. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Ambassador Vasquez, came a familiar clicking voice. Elena turned to see Zeth Ka, the former hegemony commander who had executed Marcus Chen. He was thinner now, his 4 eyes carrying a weight that hadn't been there during his days of military authority. Zethka, Elena acknowledged with a polite nod. How are the integration programs proceeding? The alien's mandibles clicked nervously. Better than expected. The Vakari delegation has agreed to join the new Mutual Defense Pact. They say they would rather have humans as allies than enemies. Elena smiled slightly. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same species that had once cowered before hegemony might were now actively seeking human protection. What about your rehabilitation classes? Zethka's expression grew thoughtful. Difficult, but educational. I am learning things about warfare that I never understood during my military service. Elena raised an eyebrow. Such as? That true strength comes from knowing when not to fight, Zethka replied. Your species could have destroyed my people completely. Instead, you chose to rebuild us. It was true. After the hegemony's surrender, humanity had shocked the galaxy again by focusing on reconstruction rather than retribution. War crimes tribunals had dealt with the worst offenders, but the bulk of human effort went toward helping former hegemony worlds establish stable, democratic governments. The galaxy had expected human vengeance to continue indefinitely. Instead, they got human compassion. Tell me, Elena said, do you still think humans are terrorists? Zethka's 4 eyes focused on her with something approaching shame. I think I never understood what terrorism actually was. When I executed Marcus Chen, I thought I was demonstrating power. I now realize I was demonstrating weakness. Through the chamber's windows, Elena could see the memorial garden that had been built where Marcus Chen died. A simple stone marker surrounded by earth plants that somehow thrived in alien soil. Every day, beings from dozens of species came to pay respects to a man they had never met but whose death had changed their lives. The memorial receives 10,000 visitors daily, Elena observed. Why do you think that is? Because his death means something different to every species, Zethka replied. To some, it represents the danger of unchecked power. To others, it shows what happens when you underestimate those you perceive as weak. Elena nodded. Marcus Chen had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a symbol that transcended species boundaries. What does it mean to you? Zethka was quiet for a long moment. It means I spent my whole life serving an empire that I thought was strong because it could destroy things. But Marcus Chen was strong because he could build things. The alien's voice grew softer. I want to learn how to build things. Before Elena could respond, her communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. She checked the source and felt her heart leap. Excuse me, Zethka. I need to take this. Elena moved to a private alcove and activated the communication link. The face that appeared was older now, grayer but still immediately recognizable. Hello, Ambassador Vasquez. This is Admiral Sarah Chen. Admiral, it's good to see you. How is retirement treating you? Sarah smiled. The first genuine smile Elena had seen from her since the war ended. Surprisingly well. I've been accepted to graduate school. Xenobiology program at Luna University. Turns out there's a lot to learn about our new galactic neighbors. Elena felt a warmth spread through her chest. After everything Sarah had been through, she was choosing to study alien life rather than destroy it. That's wonderful news. What made you decide on xenobiology? Marcus always said the best way to understand someone is to fix something with them, Sarah replied. I figure studying how different species work is the next best thing. In the background of Sarah's transmission, Elena could see what looked like a laboratory, with specimens and equipment from a dozen different worlds. I've been analyzing Vrathan cellular regeneration, Sarah continued. Fascinating stuff. Did you know they can regrow entire limbs? I'm working on adapting their techniques for human medical applications. Elena marveled at the change. The woman who had brought down the galaxy's greatest empire was now working to heal people. There's something else, Sarah said, her expression becoming more serious. I've been in contact with the Chen Memorial Foundation. They want to establish a scholarship program. What kind of scholarship? Full ride to Earth universities for any alien student who wants to study engineering, medicine, or education. Fields that build things instead of destroying them. Sarah paused. They want to call it the Marcus Chen Fellowship for Constructive Sciences. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. Even in death, Marcus Chen was still fixing things. The first recipients will be announced next month, Sarah continued. 3 students from former hegemony worlds, 2 from the Vrathan Empire and 1 from the Celestial Confederacy. Kids who want to learn how to make the galaxy better. Marcus would have loved that, Elena said. He would have, Sarah agreed. You know what else he would have loved? The reports I'm getting from Earth. Apparently, half the engineering schools in human space have waiting lists of alien students who want to learn human problem-solving techniques. Elena laughed. Trust humans to turn their reputation for destructive capability into an educational advantage. Dr. Chen, there's something I think you should know. The memorial here receives thousands of visitors every day. People from across the galaxy who want to pay respects to Marcus. Sarah's expression softened. That means a lot. It really does. But there's more. Many of them leave gifts. Tools, mostly. Broken equipment that they've fixed as a tribute. The memorial garden is becoming a monument to construction and repair. Sarah was quiet for a moment, and Elena could see the emotions playing across her face. He always said that fixing things was the highest form of respect you could show to their creators, Sarah said finally. I think he would have been honored. As the communication ended, Elena looked back out at the memorial garden. Beings from dozens of species worked together, repairing, building, creating. Marcus Chen's legacy wasn't the war that had been fought in his name. It was the peace that had been built in his memory. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human beings mattered to other human beings in ways that could reshape civilizations. But more importantly, it had learned that humans were capable of building something better from the ashes of what they had destroyed. In death, a maintenance worker from Oregon had done what he did best. He had fixed something that was broken. He had fixed the galaxy,